Well, as big as.
Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let roll call show that Councilman Whitener is not present. And believe he's on a project out of state. We do have a quorum. Everybody else is present. Can I have a motion? Can I have a motion to, we'll read it during, do you want to read it prior to the motion, Chief, or read it during comment? I'll give you a choice.
I'll read it, then you can ask.
You bet.
How's that?
Please read resolution 2026-0011. BRC loan.
Resolution number 26-011, a resolution authorizing submission of the application to the Wyoming Business Council under the Building Resilient Communities Grant and Loan Program for a construction loan on behalf of the governing body of the town of Shoshoni for the purpose of constructing a cardiopulmonary center. Whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni, located in Fremont County, Wyoming, desires to participate in the Building Resilient Communities Grant and Loan Program to assist in financing this project. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni recognizes the need for the construction of the Cardiopulmonary Center in conjunction with the Cardiopulmonary Services PC to provide medical services and economic development, and believes this project will address those needs. And whereas the public benefits of this project are professional medical services for the region, provide jobs, and develop infrastructure within the boundaries of the town of Shoshoni. And whereas the specific goals and measures of success of this project are to expand access to specialized cardiovascular healthcare measured by serving 15% of the state's population, strengthen the regional economy measured by creation of 12 permanent healthcare jobs, and removing barriers to sustainable economic growth by support for future workforce housing development through increased demand generated by the new employment. And whereas the Business Ready Community Grant Loan Program requires that certain criteria be met, as described in the Wyoming Business Council's rules governing the program, and to the best of our knowledge, this application meets those criteria. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni understands that this is a BRC loan that requires repayment to the Wyoming Business Council at a rate and term approved by the Wyoming Business Council. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni understands that this loan shall not create any indebtedness exceeding the assessed value of the property to be developed at 214 Idaho Street, Shoshoni, Fremont County, Wyoming. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni understands payments for the project are expected to be $312,532.34 per year. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni will charge $312,532.34 per year for the first 5 years, and $366,522.34 per year thereafter for lease payments from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services PC to pay for all required loan repayments and expenditures. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni understands they may need to adjust the lease payments to repay loan payments and required expenditures if the project costs exceed estimates. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni understands that the town of Shoshoni is not bound to start the project if the Wyoming Business Council or Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services PC do not commit. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni has a comprehensive operation and maintenance plan, including projected expenses and project income sources extending the life of the assets. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni plans to secure the requested Building Resilient Communities loan from the following sources: the real property at 214 Idaho Street, Shoshoni, Wyoming, Fremont County, and funds provided from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services PC. Whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni plans to repay the requested Building Resilient Communities loan from the following sources: lease payments from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services PC. Whereas the governing body for the town of Shoshoni will use the revenue recaptured from this project for the following economic development purposes: infrastructure expansion and improvement, housing development, and other economic development projects. Whereas in the event of any project cost overrun, the town of Shoshoni will provide funding in the amount necessary to complete the project received from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary. And whereas in the event of any loan fees, the town of Shoshone will provide funding in the amount necessary to pay for all such fees from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary. And whereas the governing body for the town of Shoshone has considered other possible funding solutions for this project, which include the solutions explored, a challenge loan through the Wyoming Business Council, as well as private loan. Whereas the town of Shoshone is working in partnership with Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services and Wyoming Business Council. And whereas the town of Shoshone held a public hearing on July 30th, 2026 to solicit testimony from citizens and gave full consideration to all comments received. And now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the town of Shoshone that a loan application in the amount of $3,442,343 be submitted to the Wyoming Business Council for consideration of assistance in funding the cardiopulmonary center. Be it further resolved that Christopher Kojai, grant coordinator, and Joel Highsmith, mayor, are hereby designated as the authorized representatives of the town of Shoshone to act on behalf of the governing body on all matters relating to this loan application.
Chris, we may have missed one thing, the reduced payments for the first 5 years.
That's in there.
Yeah, but they repay that at the end of the contract.
Okay.
That's 200, that'd be a $240,000 payment at the end of the contract. Because we're
Okay.
reducing it for 5 years, but they are going to pay it back at the end.
Okay, I'll add that in there.
Okay.
So read 312,532.34 per year for the first 5 years, 366,522.34 per year thereafter, and a final payment of 200, how much
$240,000.
exactly?
Exactly.
Okay, that is. With that change.
Can I have a motion to approve resolution 26-0011 WBC BRC loan for our cardiopulmonary clinic project? A motion.
I move that we approve resolution 26-0-011. Is that how you want me to do that? How that should be done?
Second.
Okay.
Get moved by Councilman Nordine, second by Councilman Stetler to approve resolution 2026-0011 as presented. Any further discussion?
Well, the question,
Go ahead, Councilman.
the question I had was, so you were talking about if there's a difference in the value, if they decide to vacate the lease or whatever.
That'll be in the contract, yes.
Yeah, and there's a few things still being hammered out in the contract.
Yes, there is.
So if those aren't agreed on by both parties,
I gotta bring the contract in front of the council to approve the contract. So this is the first.
so this is apply, I'm just, and this is
Yes,
what my understanding,
you
but I'm
bet.
clarifying.
You bet, yeah,
So this is where we're saying, yeah, we'll go for it, we'll apply for this and see if we even get it, and in the meanwhile, the contract's being hammered out with
Yes, it is.
legal stuff, and if
Our-
the contract cannot be agreed upon,
Yeah, and blows up. All we're doing is this is just to move forward. And so our legal counsel, their legal counsel, and Wyoming Business Council is all.
hashing out the contract
Yes.
as soon as we.
Yeah. One thing, what I reported, that Dr. Idlechick and I have come into an understanding of what it will look like. But the attorneys will but that way the town is protected, which is, we gotta do that. And it's the same thing with the overruns. And,
Right.
yeah,
And the other question I had was actually, I know, Chris, you had some from a grant writer, manager standpoint, you had some pretty serious concerns. And it seems that they've been alleviated, I think. And I just wanted to know from the grant writer.
My concerns were not so much from the grant perspective, but from protecting the town perspective,
Oh, I
as
know.
far as, but those are my
Managing
concerns
the
in
money
there.
and nothing.
On it being paid and how we were going to handle large payments, $700,000. Talking to the business council, we can use the loan to basically do front that, and then we'll get the money back, and that will create that revolving. So that's been alleviated as far as how that's going to work, the metrics for that. Second concern was for cost overruns that exceed the project and having a building that's not completed and we're out of money, and they decide to back out, leaving us with an unfinished building. And then what would be the ramifications from the state in that one event that were to happen, and we were unable to complete it on our own. As far as the contract, that was added into the contract, that they would have to pay that, ensure the overruns as they fall on that. Those are my major concerns as related to protecting the town and preventing harm to the town.
That was. Okay, that's what's my understanding.
You bet.
It seemed like Patrick Edwards made it pretty clear that if at some point down the road they were to abandon this for whatever reason, the business council would not come after the town, but would rather go after another business to fill the building rather than demand payment from us, and that was my understanding.
Correct.
That's it.
But there'll be a clause in there that protects the state, the business council and us all together if they were to leave early. And the valuation of the building is, say, 4 million and they owe 5 million. It'd be painful for them. They'd have to make up the difference in the valuation and the loan.
In that contract.
In the
The
contract.
lawyers are hammering out.
Yes. And Dr. Idlechick, has been receptive to all of that. All that made good common sense to him.
Yeah.
So it's, he has no intention of leaving, but he understands that we want reassurance.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah, I that was my understanding of everything. I just wanted it
you bet.
stated during this time.
Appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Councilman Nordine might have had.
Councilman Nordine, please.
Sorry, I just had a technical question that if you hit the right button, it got resolved, so I'm good with that. So, but I think it's important that we trust the process. I mean, we have some very competent groups looking at this, going over it with a fine-tooth comb. Not only people here, in Shoshoni administration, but also the business council and also the slip board. I mean, nobody wants a bad loan. Nobody wants a bad project. And they want to make sure they can do everything reasonably possible to make sure that does not happen. And I understand that this is just the gateway into those different steps. And I think that's real important, but you can't get to those steps unless you start someplace. And so that's what this resolution is doing. It's helping to start us. And this doesn't mean that it's all going to be cherry and rosy, and doesn't even mean it's going to be finally approved. It just means that we're going to go through the steps, do due diligence, and if everything shakes out, then at that point we'd be talking about it. But there's a lot to do before you get to that end point.
This is a very competitive process. Very competitive process.
Well, frankly, I would hope so.
Yes,
Because we're looking at what,
over $6 million.
yeah, 3.4 million, another 2.25 million. I mean, it's,
Another 3 million.
well,
The 2.25 comes to us.
okay, right. Got it. Anyway, the point is that.
Yes,
It's
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Nope, and the business council will play devil's advocate and they'll assist us and they'll tell us what's wrong. And they'll point out, where we're weak and where we're strong. I mean, they want it to succeed and it's got to be a good project.
I know they're a competent group. I mean, these
Yes.
are business people. This is what they do. So,
I felt a lot better after talking with after Patrick
Mhm.
Edwards did his presentation. I felt a whole lot better about things.
Yep. So we're in discussion, correct? Any more discussion? None being. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Pose the same. Motion passed all in the affirmative. Thank you. Let's move on down to resolution 2026-0012. WBC BRC grant, cardiopulmonary clinic.
This one's a lot shorter. Resolution number 26-012, a resolution authorizing submission of an application to the Wyoming Business Council under the Building Resilient Communities Grant and Loan Program for a grant involving a business on behalf of the governing body of the town of Shoshoni for the purpose of constructing a cardiopulmonary center. Whereas the governing body for the town of Shoshoni, located in Fremont County, Wyoming, desires to participate in the Building Resilient Communities Grant Loan Program to assist in financing this project. And whereas the governing body for the town of Shoshoni recognizes the need for the construction of the cardiopulmonary center in conjunction with Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services, PC, to provide medical services and economic development, and believes this project will address those needs. And whereas the public benefits of this project are professional medical services for the region, providing jobs and development infrastructure within the boundaries of town of Shoshoni. And whereas the specific goals and measures of success of this project are expanding access to specialized cardiovascular healthcare measured by serving 15% of the state's population, strengthen the regional economy measured by creation of 12 permanent healthcare jobs, and remove barriers to sustainable economic growth by support for future workforce housing development through increased demand generated by new employment. And whereas the Building Resilient Communities Grant and Loan Program requires that certain criteria be met, as described in the Wyoming Business Council's rules governing the program, and to the best of our knowledge, this application meets those criteria. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni plans to provide cash match to the Building Resilient Community Grant and Loan Program from the following sources: Wyoming Business Council BRC loan in the amount of $1,565,585.75. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni plans to provide in-kind match to this Building Resilient Communities Grant and Loan Program from the following sources: property located at 214 Idaho Street, consisting of 6 lots with an appraised value of $60,000. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni has a comprehensive operation and maintenance plan, including projected expenses and project income sources extending the life of the assets. And whereas the governing body of the town of Shoshoni will use the revenue recaptured from this project for the following economic development purposes: infrastructure expansion and improvement, housing development, and other economic development projects. Whereas in the event of any project cost overruns, the town of Shoshoni will provide funding in the amount necessary to complete the project received from Wyoming Cardiopulmonary. And whereas the governing body for the town of Shoshoni has considered all other possible funding solutions for this project, which includes the challenge loan through the Wyoming Business Council, as well as private financing. And whereas the town of Shoshoni is working in partnership with Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services, PC. And whereas the town of Shoshoni conducted specific outreach to notify affected industries and competitors and held a public meeting on July 30th, 2026 to solicit testimony from citizens, including those who may feel that the proposed project might compete with an existing business, and gave full consideration to all comments received. And now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the town of Shoshoni that a grant application in the amount of $3 million be submitted to the Wyoming Business Council for consideration of assistance in funding the Wyoming Cardiopulmonary Services, PC. Be it further resolved that Christopher Kojai, grant coordinator, and Joe Highsmith, mayor, are designated as the authorized representatives of the town of Shoshone to act on behalf of the governing body on all matters relating to this application.
Can I have a motion to approve resolution 2026-0012 WBC BRC grant for the cardiopulmonary clinic?
Move we approve resolution number 26-012.
Been moved by Councilman Stetler. And I have a second,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Nordine. Any further discussion?
The only discussion I'd have is the exact same discussion we just had on the last resolution, so I'll refrain.
So noted. Councilman Nordine,
Ditto.
Councilwoman Harkey. Being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose the same. Motion passed all in the affirmative. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Been moved by Councilwoman Harkey. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Been second after a little bit of pause, Councilman Nordine. Any further discussion, Councilman Stedler? No. No further discussion. All in favor to adjourn this meeting, the special meeting of the Shoshone Town Council, say aye. Aye. Pose the same. Motion passed. All in the affirmative. Time is
7:21.
7:21. Good job, guys.
Correct.
I appreciate everybody